Hello and welcome to another segment of the Youth Mentorship Sessions. My name is Henning Morales and I am glad to be your host today. Dr. Suzette Hart is going to be coming on and joining this interview in just a little bit. We have today a very special guest, Dr. Meredith Sagan, with us, who is going to be sharing some knowledge regarding mentorship of our youth in United States. And also the topics that we cover, as you all know, are topics that are usually universal in nature. I'll start by sharing with you Dr. Sagan's background. Dr. Sagan has been, I'll start by sharing with you Dr. Sagan's background. Dr. Sagan has been transforming people's lives for 15 years through her practice as a holistic psychiatrist and 20-year commitment to studying alternative healing practices. Dr. Sagan has integrated the best of her spiritual and medical teachings and combined them into simple, practical strategies with life-changing results. Dr. Sagan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Well, Doctor, can you please share with our audience, Doctor, can you please share with our audience a little bit about your background and your journey before we get into the actual subject matter? Would that be okay?
Absolutely. So I'm a medical doctor and psychiatrist, and my personal growth journey started actually when I was 7 years old. I was one of the youngest participants in what was then known as Werner Erhardt's EST seminars. I grew up in Boulder, Colorado, where it was all about personal growth. So I really grew up steeped in that environment, and I knew I wanted to make a contribution to the world, however, the best I could. So I ended up going to medical school in 1992 with the intention to be a psychiatrist, because I really wanted to unlock the secrets to my own happiness and then really bring that through to help other people on that journey. And I dedicated my life to it at that time.
Well, that's fantastic, Dr. Sagan. I know you've got many stories of all of your various travels and the people whom you have met through the years, teachers, spiritual teachers, medical doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, thought leaders, and you've developed a process called Pathway to Presence. Can you share a little bit about that process and really how it can help the young people who are watching, and teachers and coaches and parents and anyone who is looking to impact the mindset of young people in the United States?
Yes, absolutely. So, I'm a child psychiatrist, a general psychiatrist. I work with mental health issues, addictions, you name it, I've seen it, I work with it. Everywhere from county mental health to A-list celebrities to felons in prisons to juvenile hall. I've worked with so many people of all kinds. And, I find that at the end of the day, we're really all the same. What leads to happiness is connection with self. And what I mean by that is just knowing what you love, knowing who you are, knowing your truth, separate from other people's. And what leads to dis-ease, anxiety, stress, is a lack of connection. When we're disconnected with ourselves, we don't know what we want in life. It's really hard. We end up following other people into bad places sometimes, or leading ourselves into bad places. But when we're connected to self and can feel our truth on the inside, we're able to give ourselves a direction to get where we want to be. When we're where we want to be, that's natural medicine, because life is a lot less stressful when we're where we want to be. So that's my pathway to presence. I've developed skills and techniques to help people get there from being disconnected to getting connected.
Absolutely, and it's so important, Dr. Sagan, for young people to, especially in today's day and age, with all of the overwhelming stimuli that young people are exposed to through either television or social media, or video games. All this electronic stimuli has really stressed a lot of kids out. Okay, if you wanna just keep it simple. And as most of you know, I've got four of them. I coach little kids. For 5 years, I've coached baseball. I've coached over 100 kids, probably in those 5 years. And really, the issues that I talk about in my lectures and also in my writings really relate to that the mindset of a teenager. And again, when we grew up, it was a different time. The pressures were different, the stresses were different, and we've kind of coined a phrase for our youth mentorship sessions, the youth technology paradox, which is that you have these kids who are so much smarter, smarter than we ever were growing up, because they just have access to so much more information. They have a question, and mom and dad don't know the answer. They just go online and they got the answer. It's right there, right? So they're so much smarter. Even I've seen the difference, Dr. Sagan, in the past 10 years with my 18-year-old who is off in college now, and my 8-year-olds, and just in the past 10 years, even seeing the difference of how much sharper they are. But at the same time, these kids are experiencing different pressures, and maybe they're not developing themselves into in the broadest of spectrum. So the lack of development maybe is a negative. The increased knowledge is a positive. How do you view that dynamic?
Basically what I'm seeing now is that there is so much going on in our world. There's a lot of distraction, right? From the time we wake up to the time we go to sleep, we've got to, even kids these days have a cell phone when they're 8 years old. They've got email accounts, they're texting, they have Facebook accounts, we've got TV, media, we're trying to look good. We're trying to look like who looks good on TV. I was in the mall recently, and there was a launching of a celebrity store. There was a line out the door into the parking lot to get in. It's so exciting for people. On one hand, we see so much in media, and on the other hand, it's extremely distracting from the one thing that matters most, which is the ability to come inside, be in a state of self-connection, and calm yourself down. When you're connected with yourself, you're able to notice where your breath is, where your body is. You can actually use your breath to self-regulate. Just taking one deep breath, we can calm down. However, the problem is if you're so externalized into all of the distractions of media, trying to look like the people who look good, all these things that we do these days, then we just even forget that our own self exists, and we forget to even breathe. The pressure rises, the stress mounts, and now we're stressed out and strung out. And that's where the problems start.
Well, it's really been a pleasure talking to you over the past few days and kind of sharing my experiences and Dr. Hart's experiences, also being an educator for 30 years. And I just received a message, and again, these are the issues we're dealing with in today's day and age, and it's real time, real life issues. Just 2 weeks ago, my daughter's school, and we live in a suburb, in a crime-free, quote unquote, crime-free suburb. My daughter's school was locked down for several hours because of a threat, a violent threat. And just right now, the reason that Dr. Hart is not on is because there is a lockdown at her school in New Jersey. Right now it's going on, and they had to evacuate the school. All the kids are outside. They found a bullet somewhere, and basically she is unavailable because of a lockdown. Again, we don't want to stress on the problems as much. We do want to talk about them because they're issues that we really didn't have to deal with a generation ago. And these are issues that are deliberately related, in my opinion. And again, I'd like to, the idea of teaming up here with you, Dr. Sagan, is to get more the medical and therapeutic perspective of these issues and solutions. In my opinion, you have these young people, usually young men or boys, who are, obviously they're not present. Obviously they're not at peace. There's these, because of societal pressures, they're not at peace, and they're expressing their angst through violent behavior or threats. And your strategies, in particularly how they affect young people, is really to bring people into the present moment and into a peaceful place. And can you share with me maybe a technique that you would use for somebody who is troubled? And let's say you have case A, where you have someone who really you think would respond to a simple exercise and techniques, and maybe case B, where you have a medical situation that needs potentially a medical solution. Can you address that and maybe share some techniques that you would use for somebody with maybe a violent or that type of angst going on within their mindset?
Yes, absolutely. I'm just going to switch it around, however. I'm going to do medical first and technique second. And the reason why is because when someone is in a state of angst or anger, aggression, violence, that means that their brain chemistry is off balance. It's not natural for humans to feel that way. You know, we see very young children. They're not generally violent. We don't see 5-year-olds going to schools and threatening people. We see teenagers doing that. So what's happened between 5 and teenage years is something's happened. That person's become stressed out, their brain chemistry has gone off of balance, and what we're seeing, that anger turned to violence, is a result of brain chemistry off balance. So as a psychiatrist, this is what I would do with people who come to see me who are feeling suicidal or homicidal, paranoid, anxious, depressed, all the things that happen when the brain chemistry is thrown out of balance. We've got to use medication to bring that in. And I know there's a big controversy about psychiatric medication, but when it's turned to danger to self or danger to other people, it's time to support that brain chemistry. There is a way to prescribe medications to bring things back in balance so that people feel really good. The behavior that we see, we think it's volitional, that aggression, the violence. But I have seen so many countless times that as soon as that brain chemistry is corrected, it goes away, it dissolves, it's not volitional. So before I can even teach techniques such as self-connection and breathing, we have to have that nervous system reactivity calmed down enough to even receive that. That's why it's called the pathway to presence, because step 1 of that pathway is stabilizing brain chemistry. So that's the first thing I do. I'd sit down with that young man. That's the first thing I would do. I would talk to him, see what he's been through in his life that led to his brain chemistry going off balance, that led to him being stressed out, and then exhibiting it in this way of violence towards others. That's the first step, and we can't go farther until we do that.
That's very wise counsel, Dr. Sagan, and one of the things that we've stressed when we've done probably 20 of these sessions, and again, from an experiential perspective, which is where I come from, and also from the educational perspective where Dr. Hart comes from. We've got other experts in different areas. And we always will make sure we let the parents know, let the educators know, let the coaches know, let the teachers know that if this behavior that you're observing in these young people, if it's something that is obviously potentially harmful for themselves or other people, to seek out professional help. And we try to provide the avenues for that. And that's why it's so great that you're here, because we can say, here's your answer, go here, right? And we're going to talk about all of the materials and the content that you're creating and the support materials that you're creating and resources. And again, it's just a perfect synergy that we have potentially to create here. We will always say, hey, if your mindset is so off that you're contemplating hurting yourself or other people, get help. Another thing that we want to emphasize is and attempt, and again, through one person at a time, and then you get to more mass numbers of people, is to remove the stigma of psychiatric, seeking out psychiatric or psychological or therapeutic help. When I was a kid, I had, a young kid, I had a certain anxiety that I was experiencing, and my parents had recommended that we take me to a psychiatrist, and I rejected it. I didn't want, and I was probably 10 years old or 11 years old, but I didn't want to be known. I didn't want any of my friends knowing that I was, quote unquote, crazy or nuts or gone off the deep end in some way, right? And it was so funny because as soon as I went to the psychiatrist, I finally went, excuse me, and my parents couldn't figure out what the problem was, because I wouldn't tell them, because I thought if I was scared about this, I didn't want to tell my parents because I didn't want them to be scared about it also. But I could tell a psychiatrist because I didn't know them. I don't care if they started scared also. What do I care, right? And then after the first session, my anxiety went away completely. So I want to, one of the things that we have tried to emphasize is that there should be no reservation. If you have a cold, well, depending on how sick you are, maybe you take a little medication. If you break your leg, you go to the hospital so they can fix your leg. You don't want to walk around with a broken leg. There's ways to heal your leg. If there's something going on, again, with your brain chemistry or on a medical level, then you should seek medical attention for that, and there's nothing wrong with it. And even if it's just therapy, just actually talking to somebody, sometimes that is the answer. And as you know, sometimes you'll have your patients and you talk to them and you say, well, this person really will be better served through conversational therapy or exercise or techniques versus medication. And that's why I'm so excited. One of the reasons I'm so excited to work together, you're known as the holistic psychiatrist. Can you share a little bit maybe about what I just commented on, and then also tell us about your approach in terms of the holistic side versus the prescription side of things?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I think you brought up such a great point about, if you have a cold or a broken leg, it's obvious, right? You go to the doctor. You had a bad bacteria, you caught a cold from someone, you go to the doctor to get a medicine to help with that bad bacteria. Well, as with psychological issues, we think that the person is the problem. That's why you were saying, oh, I was so embarrassed, I didn't want someone to think I'm crazy. Well, the truth of the reality is that there was some kind of a bad bacteria that happened to you to make you anxious, but it wasn't a bacteria, it was a circumstance. It was a situation. There's something that happened to you in your life that stressed you out. So anxiety and stress is a normal reaction, just like a cold is a normal reaction to a bad bacteria. Anxiety and stress is a normal reaction to something that may have happened to you. Like maybe you were bullied. Maybe you got in an argument with your parents and felt bad about yourself. Maybe even, God forbid, there's really horrible things that happen to people. They've been sexually abused or physically abused, or they've witnessed a really traumatic event. The natural result is brain chemistry out of balance, anxiety. The solution is you go to the doctor or the therapist and you work it out. So my message to people is there's nothing wrong with you if you're challenged. Something happened to you. It's like I always say it's like the pool cue hitting the 8 ball, or I don't play pool, that white ball, whatever that is, you hit that white ball and the other colored balls go places. We got to find out what was the origination point. It's normal. So that's a huge message that I have. And then regarding being a holistic psychiatrist, what that means is that I see the whole picture. I'm not just looking at one aspect of you, which is brain chemistry. I'm looking at what is the point of origination of the problem? What happened to you in your life that got you stressed out? I'm going to look at that. I'm going to look at how are you doing physically, brain chemistry. How are you doing emotionally, mentally, energetically, and spiritually? And then I'm going to look, where are you out of alignment with yourself? And how can I connect you back up so that you're back to yourself, back to your center and whole?
Absolutely, that's such a healthy approach. Well, to me, this is the only way to go, and it is a very forward-thinking approach, and having both oars in the water, as I would say. You have the holistic side and you have the prescription side. Now, my father was a medical doctor. He was an anesthesiologist, and so I grew up around doctors. My mother was a nurse. I grew up, a lot of my cousins are doctors. My father was a professor, teaching professor at the hospital where he practiced for 30 years in New Jersey. And so I had doctors and the interns over all the time. So I've been around the medical side of things. And then when I came of age, I developed more of a health consciousness. And my father and I kind of butted heads for years because I became a vegetarian in my early 20s, and he said, "You're crazy." This was 20 years ago. So it was not a common thing, especially for a young man. What are you doing? You need your meat, is basically what he was telling me. And it was funny because over the years, I saw that he became more open to preventative versus prescription, and became much more open to holistic holistic approaches as times changed. And so I'm so glad that now we're living in a time where these things, where medicine and holistic approaches to solving health issues, are melded together. And I can't hide my enthusiasm in working together and getting this information out there, seeing as you're the expert in this field.